It's time for change to move into the real work of the universe. And it's time to understand that we use the matter state to reach the level of understanding of the soul of the man. Now you understand maybe why the Creator has sent his messengers in the name of whatever you have had. Is that they bring the ears, that it can be used when the time of the Messiah comes. They can teach the soul and the message, not to oppose. But by them understanding through those who have become Messiahs, to give from their souls to these to elevate, the job is made easy. The school is there and the students are devotedly there. Then there won't be any fight between what they call the Muslims and the Christians. The lamb and the lion will eat and sleep in the same nest. The Christians and the Muslims will sleep and pray in the mosque, then in the same church, in the name of their souls, not in the name of religion that is used to create so much conflict for the benefit of those who were the hyperactive children. The time has come, the time of change is here. And as I said, my wish is my command. If it's your wish to see peace, path of peace is laid very clearly. It's the soul of the collective awareness, by giving, will create that position of change. No other thing. There is no pen in the soul of the man. And I'm sure once you go into the universal community, you will never see anything written but the balance of the fields of the soul of the existence. Try to be humble enough not to become arrogant in the power that you have understood and you possess. Otherwise, you'll fall in the same path of the church and the mosque. This is what we promised, and this is what we have delivered. We have to understand the operation of the soul, and we have to understand the soul of the man is a star in the cosmos of the universe. If we compare the soul of the man and many of us, 7 billion in one collection, Earth is like a galaxy with so many stars. When we look in the depth of the universe, we see galaxies with hundreds of millions of stars in it. So is the planet Earth. It carries 7 billion beautiful stars, which are the soul of the man. Carries with it soul of so many trillions of animals, plants, and everything else. So if you look, when someone who does not see the physicality of the earth and its content, what do they see? They see a galaxy with so many beautiful lights shining, each one according to their strength, each one according to their position. An infant has a beautiful soul, so has the old man. To those who do not see the physical dimension of this planet, but they see the strength of the field, we are clusters of stars. The human race, every single soul, no one from a distance sees, that's the soul of a fisherman, that's the soul of the cosmologist, that's the soul of the president. They all shine irrespective of the physicality. This is the magic. This is what the new science has to bring to man. When we look through our soul, we see nothing but we star in the other souls. And this is the break. This is the understanding. This is what all these teachings are about. Coming to mature to the next level, to understand in the deep space, the universe is the oyster for those souls who serve. Then man is ready to go into space. Then man is ready to become part of the universal community which has been promised. I never promised you heaven. I always promised you the elevation of the man to join the family. And now you have the key. It's you who has to open the door to understand, if I can raise the soul of these people or millions of other souls, that the physical life on this planet changes, then I'm worthy to be part of the universal community. To be there to serve, to expand. To be there, to be part, that in the cycle of life of universe, I become, in being part, I become part of the totality. When man reaches that point, a new dimension in the strength of the soul of the man will appear, which is beyond imagination of understanding of the physical life. It's the gate to the opening of the new life, in a new dimension, which is beyond imagination of what you might call a new beginning, a new cycle. Which that cycle carries with itself the origin of the creation of life in the universe and the universe. It's the elevation of the soul to serve become the key, not a throne of the physical life. The time is right. The time has come for the man to go through this process.
Welcome everyone to the 55th One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace. It's Tuesday, October 30th, 2018. My name's Rick Cram and I'll be your host today. This is a publication of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute, Public Education in English. And our lovely host today, once again, will be Caroline Keshe. And I believe she's ready to go with today's show. Are you not, Caroline?
Yes, Rick. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I hope, as usual, a nice cup of tea or coffee will be more than welcome. Can you hear me well, Rick?
Perfect, yes.
Okay, because I'm working on a headset, so I want to make sure there's no disturbance on my microphone. As we agreed, we will go and move on to the next commandment. Please, Rick. You got it ready? Most probably.
Yeah, I've got commandments ready here. And are we on the river of life, or that would be the 18th? Let me see. I'll just bring them up here. We'll have a look.
Yep.
I'll have to reshare there. It's only a strip we see there, Rick.
Okay, I'll have to make the picture a bit smaller. Got a different setup here, so just a second.
If you're on the 18th, then we have 4 more to go then.
Okay, let me share again here. I'm not sure if that's sharing properly. Can you see that now, or?
Nothing's changed.
Okay, there's something just
do a stop share and then there we go. It's cleared now, so you can go share. Same thing.
Okay, there's something wrong with this. Oh, I see what's happening. I got two the same window, and it's picking the one that I didn't want. So just a second here, get it all set up. Okay, now you should be able to see it, and me see it too.
Yep. It's all good.
Okay, I'm just getting it set up in live stream here. So, okay, there's the 18th was, thou shalt be the river of life and love, not only to thyself and thy loved ones, but in equal measure to his enemies. And we looked at, see what's happening now. Yeah, now I can scroll through this. We had the previous one, the thou shalt be at peace with thyself, with thy neighbor, his tribe and tribes. And previous to that was the thou shalt not touch or carry no arms to defend or to kill another. So we had the 17th and now the 18th. Or did we touch on that one last time?
I don't think so.
Okay.
What was the one before?
The one before was thou shalt be at peace with oneself, with thy neighbor, his tribe and tribes.
Yeah, we had that one.
And I think we just mentioned this one last time, and it's 18th. And then the one after that, just so we know, is the 19th, thou shalt not accept no path except the path of his own soul to his creator. So that one we haven't touched with. So. Okay, so the 18th, I'll just read it again. Thou shalt be the river of life and love, not only to thyself and thy loved ones, but in equal measure to his enemies.
That's a huge interpretation. Who would like to start?
Well, I notice off the bat that it's similar in some ways to previous commandment. Let me see the one. Well, it's similar to the one that we just had. Thou shalt be at peace with oneself, with his neighbor and tribes. And also, thou shalt be equal to others, and do not consider thyself higher or lower than them. But this one is a little bit different. Thou shalt be the river of life and love is the first part of it. Not only to thyself and thy loved ones, but in equal measure to his enemies. Excuse me, I sneezed there. But in equal measure to his enemies.
Yep. if we ask when we read this, Rick, what should we not do? Or what should we not be? Would it not be answered easier?
So you're saying we shall not be the lake of life and love. We are the river of life and love, or how?
No.
Shall not be the river of death and hate, or how do you mean? Is there a river of death and hate? I'm not sure. I think there's only the river of life and love, and you're either in the river or you're not. But anyway, how did you see you were saying the how were you seeing it as the opposite, or the how
you just gave a very good example. A very good example. Don't you think so?
Well, in a way, yes. If we were to look at our own behavior from day to day, even right now, today, have we started the day and have run through the day as the river of life and love? Is that what we're exuding every moment? Or are we perhaps the little dribble in the ditch or something, rather than the river of life and love? It's a dynamic statement. It's not a stagnant. It's not a what you say? It's static. It's not a static arrangement. It's a dynamic arrangement. Rivers indicate a flow, a dynamic situation, a movement from one place to another, perhaps.
Also remembering in the time frame where this was brought. Because as Mr. Keshe said, it is in so many ways also an explanation why they were not delivered. So when you talk and you look at it from that point of view, it opens an easier door of understanding.
Hello, Carolina. Hello, Rick. It's Peggy. May I add something?
Sure, yes, go ahead.
My thoughts originally when Mr. Keshe delivered these commandments to us was, since this is another one that was left out intentionally because it did not serve the purpose of the person who was given the beautiful right to deliver it, it did not serve for their purpose. So it was not given out at the time. And at that time, there were disputes. And if this was to have been known, then the care would have had to have been taken equally for the ones in which the carrier of the knowledge, he couldn't manipulate the people the way, for example, if you're going to feed the people food because they're hungry, you can't ignore feeding the people that you previously or currently have some level of dispute with. You still must feed them. You still must, if they're wounded or injured somehow, you still must care for them equally. And because this was intentionally left out, now humanity needs to learn that you must embrace each other even when you have disputes or some type of disagreement. This is a commandment. And we've heard, love thy brother, love thy neighbor. But this particular commandment, I believe, because it had been set off to the side so that the person carrying the knowledge could go a different path. I think it's very, very relevant. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Carolina. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peggy. Whoa, Topoli agree as well. Stop.
Hello, Topoli.
Yeah, Mr. Topoli, I'm present too, he says. Little boy. I think you're in the right direction of analyzing. It would be a different journey for a lot of people. Anybody else?
We have someone with their hand up here. Mimi. Mimi, I'll allow you to talk there. And if you would like to open your microphone and go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, hi everybody. Okay, I'm from France, and what I wanted to say, it's about commandment and how to practice. Everybody can do it. Doesn't matter if he believe whatever God, he can believe on it, because everything goes to one point, to the source. But it's before to act, before to give love, we need to have love for ourselves. We cannot give what we don't have. So first is to love ourselves. To love yourself, it's be completely in love about what we are doing, what we feel about us, and what the way we act to the other people. So before to act, there is a practice. It's very useful for people to wake up. It's what does God think? What inside, what does God feel? What does God want you to do? What does God want you to know? What I need to do right now? And then you get unstuck about what you are doing, and you just give love to your work, give love to your family, give love to the community, and you put love in your words when you speak. Because everything you put out come back. And if you put anger to whatever happened, you give food to this anger. It's for that is a time for people to get back to themselves, to get back to love, and stop to get completely in condition with the media. Don't have anger about government, about politics. Things have to be done to move on. Voilà. And then I have a very important message. It's on the other side of today, but I did a channeling with Nikola Tesla, and I was very happy because he spoke about Keshe, and he said Keshe is very proud about Keshe, about the work he's doing, and he say what will be very important for Keshe is to add sound to his research. Voilà, I share all of my thoughts to you guys, and I'm very happy to be part of you. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Mimi. Could you explain just a little bit what you said at the last there about to add sound? I didn't understand what you meant there.
When you with the guns, you know, with the guns we are doing,
Right.
Okay, to add sound, like
Okay.
you know, sound like beta, delta. You know the sound
Of the brainwave frequencies, you mean?
Yes, yes, yes. Because if you add like, you know, people doing channeling, voilà, people doing channeling very high frequency. Attends, wait, I need my paper.
I do note that there are several people I've seen that have been doing experiments with sound.
Alpha and delta are very powerful together. It's a very, very high frequency. And I have other one, but I don't have my paper with me now.
Okay, well, that's a good idea. And there are people that have been experimenting with that, as I mentioned. And
yeah, this is straight by Nikola Tesla. Huh? This I get that this information last week, straight from him. Yes, he's not here. We are right. Okay, he's a channeling.
Okay, well, that would be interesting to.
And I was very happy because doesn't spoke about Keshe, you know, and he spoke about Keshe straight. He said, yeah, Keshe are doing a very good work. So I said, wow, cool, nice. Yeah, oh yeah, I was so happy. And he said, yeah, they need to put sound and they will discover higher. Voilà.
Yeah, I agree. And there are people doing that. And I've been a believer in adding sound to our experiments for quite some time. It's just what exact sounds and what are sounds and so on. So we try to look at it as a plasmatic point of view and how that interacts.
Yeah. So I don't have my paper with me, unfortunately. But maybe next week I will get more information.
Okay, and that's great. If you can put together a little sort of report, that might be interesting to present.
Okay.
One of the other classes we have as well, either in the private teachings or perhaps in the plasma reactor group. The Keshe plasma reactor group is a perfect place for that kind of information where we can make a drawing or work with it and talk about it and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your message.
And thank you to be here.
Okay, Caroline, this is good. We've actually have some interaction at the beginning of the show, which is kind of unusual. Still there, Caroline?
Oh, yes, Rick, okay. I am. I'm not abandoning you. I'm sitting quiet.
Never.
I've seen there people posting in the chat room, so I keep an eye at the same time. Something about Dan Constantine Balis.
Yeah, it's hard to understand what you're writing there, Dan. the first line you wrote didn't have any English words in it. Me have tried, but none of them are spelled as English. For loving, I think is for loving beings except direct something.
It's
how
not
it is.
possible. But the one above makes a little bit more clear. Equal magnetic and gravitational loving without difference. Eliminate difference between me and the enemy, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting interpretation of English. Thank you, Dan.
We do our best.
That was a good translation, Caroline. Yeah, Dan, if you want to just speak, that would be fine too, because I think we can understand you better. I'll put you through as a panelist here so you can talk if you like.
Thank you, Rick. Good night, good evening for everybody. And yes, I'm speaking not so well in English, but I'm reading also. Yes, I want to translate what I reading. Where I try to see what yes, it's about enemy, no? It's often love, not only me. It eliminate boundary between me and enemy. It's like equal. And yes, magnetic and gravitational, because offering and taking how it is, love. And about another point, it's when I love myself or another person, which means accept how it is, with defect, with problems, with little things, accept everything. Close your eyes when you love another person.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I think, are you still there? I guess you're done with that statement then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That was good. Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak up at this point? If you're an attendee here, you can put your hand up and we can allow you to speak. And if you're a panelist, you can go ahead. No takers? Is there anyone else with an idea about this commandment? Thou shalt be the river of life and love, not only to thyself and thy loved ones, but in equal measure to his enemies.
Rick, it's Peggy again. I had put a thought that I had right as we were opening today. I have a wish and I put it into chat, but I could tell you if it's appropriate for wishes at this point. And I think it belongs with this commandment. The wish is, I wish that all duality-induced disputes be removed everywhere for all times now. Because I think it's the duality that we find that, and not all duality is bad. That brings creativity. But the duality, when it's so decisive and divisive that it creates the enemies. So with this commandment, we should have never created enemies. So if we can now do away with duality-induced disputes, then that should tie in with this commandment. What do you think?
Well, that depends on how you look at it. If you are the river of life and love, if you're really enacting this commandment, then would you be wishing about anything to do with duality, I wonder? Or are you just busy being the river of life and love, and there is no wish for others that are in duality, because you don't see that duality. You don't see the disputes. You only see the beauty of it, you might say, because you're busy being the river of life and love, as opposed to seeing others that might be not in the river of life and love, I suppose you might say.
Very good point. Thank you.
But I think that it is, we always come from duality in one way or another. As soon as we speak a spoken word, basically, it's part of the matter world, and it starts to become interpreted, and all the different conditions come in that environment and so on. So in a way, that wish is, it's totally valid, because that is, in a way, the wish of the being that's there in the river of life and love. They want to spread that life and love everywhere, and those disputes would appear as a block in that energy, let's say, or you might say a boulder in the river of life and love, and the water, if you know rivers well, and how it works with rocks and boulders and sand and so on, the river will move the rock eventually. It'll wear it down, and it'll get at its foundations, and it will move it so that that rock eventually becomes part of the river. It may take a long time, but the river is totally pervasive. It will not have its will thwarted. It will continue to flow, let's say, as long as it has a source, of course. And it always does, at least on this planet. So the river flows, and what gets in the way will be eventually dissolved. So those duality-induced disputes get dissolved by that river of life and love, let's say. That's the way I look at it. Becomes a blockage in the river, no problem. The river will take care of it.
And this is my wish, because there's many, many energies building in many places and many countries. And I look at the US right now, and because of the elections that are going on and the immigration issues, and there's a lot of strong energies all mounting, and they're mounting in such divisive ways. And it's now time to stop that. We don't need to continue to amass one line or the other. If we need to unite. And so we have to find that balance.
Yes, yes, good point, Peggy. There's definitely a lot of unrest happening, and not just in the U.S., but all over the world. It's unrest seems to be the new norm in a way. And
I got another point, Rick.
okay.
Because this commandment was supposed to be delivered by Moses. So it also goes into the direction that it indicates that when you become a priest or a nun, what does this clearly says? You have to stay the river of life. You understand what I'm trying to?
Could you say it in a different way, please?
You know that this came from Moses. So it touches part of certain sections of religion which have not been allowed to marry. So they have stopped the rivers of life. You understand? Solitary, all those things that they have gotten through the religion, Buddhists, Catholics, you name it, there are a lot which are preventing the river of life to flow.
And you're saying through laws and different restrictions that they have through the religion? Specifically,
they're not allowed to marry. The Pope is not married. The cardinals are not married. The people which are going into convents, they don't marry. If this would have been released the way it should have been, then what would be the reverse of it? That even the ones which were proclaiming the word, they would have carried families. You understand now, Rick?
You're saying you have to have a family in order to be the river of life and love?
If they didn't bring those laws in, that they cannot marry because of their belief, then they would be carrying family, they would be carrying the rivers of life, children.
Yes, but then they wouldn't be the priests and the guiding people, perhaps in that culture, that were needed. Or perhaps they weren't needed. That's maybe your point.
My point is that they are forcing, if you look at the laws of the religion, the way they are in place, what have they been fighting against? That people cannot use anti-conceptive. They are preventing certain ways of children to be educated through their education system where they got control over. And you just keep on going and going and going. But because they have been put themselves in that kind of condition, what has been coming on the surface very recently, that would have been prevented if this law would have been in position or commandment. Because they would have tasted what it is to have children. They would have had the connection through love and care because they carry their own children. So that when you carry something yourself, you love and you care, you don't go out so much to harm and to hurt somebody else's children, do you? So if you look in the full context, let me put my glasses on, please. If you read it, "Thou shalt be the river of life." Life is and love. And not only then by the ones you love yourself and the ones you have as, let's say, family, children, but it would be much easier than to love all the ones which are so called enemies, because you have the taste of life, what it is to have your own. The river of life is what you, these are your offspring, because the line of life stops when you have no children.
Yes, but you can be the river of life and love and not have children. That's not part of this that I can see.
Oh yes, it is, Rick, because it's been stopped. It is not, it's the ones you have to understand who was supposed to deliver this commandment and who did not do it, and what have they used with this commandment, what has come in place because it wasn't there. How many priests and how many clergy and how many thousands and thousands and millions of people which are connected to whatever religion status, look where they are prohibited from marrying and having children. Now you see the catastrophe. If that would have been delivered, that they are allowed, and it was as a commandment, as they respected as much as they could with the 10 first commandments, then we would have been able to prevent a lot of chaotic situations, don't we?
I don't know, maybe. But if you get the same people with the same behavior married, I don't see that that's the solution to the problem.
It is a part. It's not it's never a totality of all, Rick, but it would have diverted the course of that kind of behavior in a totally different, because you have to understand, once you have the first child which is abused because of this kind of way, because of this was not delivered, what does that child will bring forward again and again? It's damaged.
No, this
There's...
is the definition. No.
Hello?
What's... Sorry,
Hello?
Mimi, what, Mimi, I think you just sort of said something there. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say we need to be today and understand what happened yesterday, but with no attachment. And there is a law of the universe. And when we came here, we chose the family where we want to be. And if a child gets abused, it's for a special reason. It's for him, he decides that to grow, to understand. So we cannot mix everything. And today we are today. So today we move to love, for a beautiful world where everybody will respect everybody. So this will not happen anymore. Because these have been done. But for that to move on, people need to work on themselves with no judgment, no attachment, no fear. Because fear, what is fear? Fear is culpability. It's I'm better, I'm less, he's wrong, he's right, he's yes, he's no, he's right, he's left. Well, this is fear. Fear brings to aggressivity. Fear brings to judgment. If we go to love, we go to respect.
I do understand, Mimi, but
yes,
we are bringing no judgment. I'm trying to clarify what is the river of life. The river of life is what you reap, what you will produce again.
It's love.
That's the river of life.
River of life is love.
Yes, but also in Mr. Keshe's soul teachings, he says it is in one of the starting videos or the ending videos. He says, when these children are born with the wrong field strength, that's why we want to try to open up the full understanding. River of life to me is you as a person are here to have offspring, but not to stop it. And because it's one of the commandments, because it was not in place, that's where the understanding has to come from. Nothing to do with fear or nothing to do with, but to have an overall view where they have, if that would have been there, that commandment, then that line of offspring would have not been stopped because there would have been no reason to do so.
Yeah, but you speak all the time about the past. Today, it's to be this river of life. It's to be yourself. It's to be the co-creator for why you come on this earth. Is to respect earth. Is to be in connection with the nature. If you look all any old monument, it can be in Greece, it can be in Egypt, it can be the Native American, it can be Africa, I mean all over the world, in China. It's all the time the human and the animal. You know, it's connection with that. And that's the river of life. It means we need to be connected with who we are, with the source, with your inside power. And that is only you can make the work. We can give you tools to go on this but it's up to you.
Yes, but it's not only the river of life, which we just started, because Dan Constantine just put a nice follow-up on this, and he says it is not only that, it is life of the rivers, the lands, the stone. It's also the animals. It is to keep the river of life maintained. So yes, there would be more respect also towards animals.
Yeah.
There would be no slaughtering of animals to sacrifice to, and that was also part of it. And that is what Mr. Keshe said in his teaching after Fabio's death. He brought it forward. Mankind have been guided the wrong way, is being stimulated to do the wrong because of these things missing. That's why these commandments have come to really to be fully understood. That is not only today. Yes, we will carry now the information and we came to understand a lot, but we have to also know that this commandment was supposed to be delivered how many thousands years ago? And if it would have been in place, what would be the diversion of the change of the course of humanity? That's what Mr. Keshe was trying to explain, and what an impact it has on you and your day-to-day life to understand how much difference it would be if it would have been delivered, but they were not delivered. They're only been delivered a few months ago. So nobody knew.
But all of this, I'm completely agree. But assure that word doesn't exist, okay? If you want to be on the river of life and love, okay?
We have to open it up, darling. Doesn't matter. That's why we will.
Before to open, you need
to make them even more understood.
If you open for yourself, the river of life open, but the flow of the river go. Because people need to work first on themselves, and then the community can move on. Because you cannot give what you don't have. It is impossible. And be in the now. So be in this beautiful earth, in this beautiful planet where we are. And do what we need to do. That is very important. Love the earth. Get back. Fix what have been wrong before. Okay. That's my.
That's what we are. That is what we are discussing at this given moment.
And go to the simple way. It's very simple. More simple, more ego.
If it was that simple,
yeah, it is.
It would have already been. It would have already been understood, and it's getting more understood because a lot of people. You got to understand when Mr. Keshe brings these kind of messages. The reason why is that because we are opening these topics in certain ways, we bring more understanding to people who would never looked at it that way. Because so we are inspiring, excuse me, darling. Mm-hmm. We are inspiring people which have people which are in missionaries, which are being walked into this kind of way of living. And those families, they get and receive the energy to rebalance the whole, what has not been delivered. That's why we are sitting together to open this awareness of why and how. And if we don't open the pattern, it has to be able to be discussed. That's why we made those wishes last year in the blueprint of the World Peace Treaty. One of the wishes was included to protect our children. And these are the rivers of our life. So we start inspiring people, and you have seen what has come out of that. It's getting stopped. But the people don't always look at certain parts. You can, with what you stated, people would not open only the other doors to look at it from where the impact came, because this was supposed to be delivered before the churches were rising, before the religious were getting a hold on to mankind.
Yeah, that's I'm agree. But this happened because that was the way to control people. But this
so that's the reason why we have to open it up. That's why we have to go through all the topics of the understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we are now people are more apt to listen because the universe is helping us. There is a very good energy for that right now. And that's why we have more, we can speak more, okay? 20 years ago, I start to speak and people think I was, not normal. So anyway, but it's beautiful. And the people are going to go on the on this river of life and love is going to be a beautiful life.
Thank you very much for your input. Anybody else wants to share their view on this commandment, please?
Yes, we've got Dimitri with his hand up here. Want to go ahead, Dimitri? What happened to Dimitri? I think he's dropped out here.
Anybody else, Rick?
He's there in panelists.
Oh,
He's not having a clear
as panelists?
line.
I'm not seeing him as a panelist.
He's trying to get through, but he's having a mumble bumble.
Funny, I don't even see him in the panelist list. Okay, Dimitri, you might have to reconnect or something in order to get your line to come through properly. I think you might have a bandwidth issue there. Maybe we have to leave him as an attendee and just allow him to speak rather than bring him in as a panelist. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to go ahead at this point in time?
Yes, I would like to go ahead. Hi Rick, hi Karolina. This is Pete, Universal Council Polish Language. And I would like to start by quoting Mr. Keshe, because I have a transcript from the 52nd knowledge of this series, which was 3 weeks ago. And I just want to bring up two sentences. So one sentence is as follows. So the enemy of the soul of the man, which is this physicality, is the test for the soul. How can it give more, that he can receive more to elevate itself? And this is what none of us understand. And then the second sentence is, the biggest enemy of the soul is the physicality, because it entraps it till the time when the physicality has no more strength to control it and it frees itself. But in that process, in that time, sorry, there's more to that sentence, but I got copied. But basically what I wanted to bring in is this sort of definition, the analysis of this commandment from the point of view of our soul, or our two souls, soul of the man, soul of the physicality, the relationship between the two souls. Because if we talk about being a river of life and love, not only to ourselves, not only to our loved ones, but in equal measure to the enemies as well. And in that teaching, Mr. Keshe uncovered that the commandment that we talked about feeding our enemies, and highlighted an important understanding of the relationship between the soul and the physicality. How can one be the enemy of the other? And if we talk about these terms, even if we are challenged by our soul in our life, there is a feedback from our soul. There is a lesson which we have to go through and learn from. Quite often, these lessons, these lectures can be quite tough, and we might perceive it as, something negative. We might see as, somebody who loves us wouldn't give us something like this. So we might be perceiving, our soul as the enemy. Why do we end up in certain situations? Why do we get ill? Why do we lose different people in our life, and so on and so on? So there are many situations where we can think about, this testing or this feedback from our soul, these experiences that are given as something given by our enemy. Because if somebody loves us, why would they give us something so hard, so difficult to live with or to go through? So immediately what comes to my mind is also when Mr. Keshe said about, if we knew the truth, a lot of us would commit the suicide. But at the same time, he was saying that, committing a suicide is not the way to reach that point of maturity of the soul, of elevation, of moving, of packing into our spaceship and going to the next cycle. And a suicide can be one example of, of the physicality, for example, deciding not to be the river of life, not to nourish the soul anymore, not to feed it anymore, not to love it anymore, but end the contract. Same as this is the case with ALS, the wish of death which comes true. I think this is a similar situation where, that decision about the separation, about not feeding one by the other, is made. This is sort of my point of understanding and my intake onto this commandment from the understanding of the soul and physicality. Thank you.
That's a good point. Thank you, Pete. Goes along somewhat with Mark House had a comment in Facebook, apparently. Thank you, Flint. Says, the choice for the river of life can be to evolve to self-immortality or to procreate and pass on your DNA to children. Okay. So this gets back into the little debate that I was having with Caroline here, in a way. The procreation versus the self-evolution path, which may not include the procreation part. Let me see.
What is Mr. Keshe teaching us? You tipped on it, and Pete just tipped on it, and he said you are so much more. And he's encouraging us to carry the physicality with the soul. But he also explained that at this given moment, a lot of us are like the lion and the lamb. We are still devouring our lamb instead of embracing it. And when we come to that point of maturity, then we will become that river of life as well. And then the second part is that who do we consider beside the ones we love and ourselves? It means that we can be so generous towards the ones we don't love, which means we can elevate them to our level.
Well, we have a comment from YouTube from Daily Events. Mentions compassion is not selective. When we hold that feeling of unconditional love, we see every being as equal regardless of any circumstances. For those who already forget what love is, one can start with a smile and grow from there. I'm reminded of your exercise that you gave, Caroline, of catching yourself in the mirror and giving a smile.
Yep. Anybody else?
Yeah, Dimitri has got his hand up here, so we'll just allow you to talk there, Dimitri, and see if you can go ahead there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, seems clear.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Rick. Hello, everybody. This commandment, like some of the others that we have gone through, it doesn't sit with balance in my thinking. And the reason for that is, again, like the others, it's the word enemy, enemies. Now, if, you know, the first part of it, thou shalt be the river of life and love. To me, that in itself means when you look out into the world and you see everybody, you don't see enemies. If you see an enemy, you know, you're not being the river of life and love. You're being a river of duality. You know, maybe it's just me, but I understand that these were passed to Moses in a time of heavy duality. So, you know, maybe the word enemies was most applicable then. But, you know, now, with the knowledge that we have that has been shared with us unconditionally by Mr. Keshe, you know, the word enemy, it doesn't sit in the understanding of the totality of existence. You know, is the word, you know, being that we're in a time where we're moving out of duality into, if you will, oneness, you know, do we possibly need to think about rewriting the 24 commandments at the right time? Now is not the right time, but possibly at the right time, to not include words that are just descriptive of duality. You know, does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. You got some wind noise in your microphone there, Dimitri. It's quite noisy in the background, but otherwise it came through very clear. Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's sort of almost a contradiction within the commandment in a way, but these were the commandments that were supposed to be delivered. We're talking about a couple of millennia ago. So perhaps we've evolved to the point where we don't need actual commandments at this point. Maybe reminders might be a better word, but commandments, I don't think that's going to happen in our modern world. My opinion, that is.
It's easy to understand, Rick, because how many people are aware of these missing commandments?
Well, I think that when people wake up to the point where they know who they are in the sense of the source and our essence and our beingness, then the commandments come natural. That's part of being in that condition of unconditional love, that being that, like it has been brought up a couple times, when one is that river of life and love, then all these commandments come naturally. They're just they're just describing aspects of that life, of that essence being, the one that's not the physicality part of ourselves that gets involved in all these issues and so on. Is the river of life and love, is that the physicality? Does that come from the physicality? Does that have much to do with the physicality? That would be one question I would bring up.
May I just jump in here?
From the source.
What you just said then is very interesting, because you know, can we have our physicalities without the filters? You know, because it's literally those filters that are creating the duality. So, you know, is it like you said, is it possible to be truly the river of life and love with the physicality, with the matter state? You know, can we interaction of the filters to a level where, you know, we are the river of life and love? You know, is it possible to do that, or do we literally need to elevate ourselves to the point where we ascend to a level where those filters do not interact, and, you know, possibly we'll have a different dimension of matter state and physicality?
Well, I think that you might have answered it previously in that when we are that river of life and love, then we don't see enemies. We don't see others as enemies. They might be seen more as an opportunity to transform something, or an opportunity to transmute something, or an opportunity to interact with the physicality of life and the planet and so on. And if maybe the measurement is that if we are to see enemies, then we're not there yet. So in effect, there are filters operating if we are to see enemies, if we are to see others as opposing us, or other than a part of us, that we're all actually the same being. And if we see others, then we're seeing a separation, we're seeing the duality. We're not seeing it from the river of life and love necessarily, at least in its ultimate example, perhaps. It's interesting. Again, I think it goes back to what Mark was saying. There's this sort of a split, or two paths. There's the river, the choice for the, he says, the choice for the river of life can be to evolve to self-immortality, or to procreate and pass on your DNA to children. So one is the way through going to space and the immortality of the soul, and the other is through the physicality and procreation, passing on your DNA, all the stuff, and to partake in that, to be part of that life experience. So that in a way, it gets back to the statement of which Mr. Keshe said, and that Pete brought up, of this dichotomy between what we call the soul and what we call the physicality, or the soul of man versus the soul of the physicality. There's two different aspects that both need to be worked on during this lifetime. We work to evolve the physicality, at the same time we wish to transform the soul so that it learns from this experience. Any other input? We've got a couple of hands up here. We have Jeanette.
Yes, good afternoon. I once learned through a book that was supposedly a revelation that Jesus gave to a lady, in which he divided this commandment in two things. He said, when you find somebody and you recognize joy and love is one aspect of that encounter, and you can have a second aspect in which you have a not pleasant experience in which you might find some feelings of hate or not pleasantness. He will say that those were times in which we needed to recognize that thing that we needed to cure in ourselves, meaning that that was the thing that I needed to learn and take it to experience so that I could overcome in this life. So for me, what I see that is happening a lot now is the need of people to confirm their existence. I know that Mr. Keshe has been talking about this a lot, that many of the things that we do is to confirm existence. And I think that at this point, really what we need to do is to learn to accept ourselves as we are and love ourselves as we are. Because once we're able to do that, then we can learn to live in an environment in which confirming the existence is not a necessity. Thank you.
That's a good point. Thank you. Confirmation of existence. Okay. I've got Jalal. Maybe he can shed some more light on this. Go ahead, Jalal.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I am at work, I'm sorry. But now I am noticing how the people is talking, and I learned from Caroline. For the lady, when she said, you cannot give what you do not have, I would like to say, as Rick said, you need to know who you are. You are capable to have everything, and you already have everything, but you need to tap in. That's all. You need only knowing that you are. So you have everything, and the whole universe is there to help you achieve that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jalal. Well, I understand we have a special guest here today that's just showed up,
Yep.
Mr. Keshe. And I think we should allow him to have something to say here. I'm sure he will. Please come in, Mr. Keshe.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, as usual. I've just been called in. Can you come in to say something? But I don't know what you want to say. I was here a few minutes ago. I couldn't stay in. The system kicked me out a couple of times, so I left. What is interesting and what is very interesting, it says, but love your enemies in the equal measure. I go back into the same path of teaching and understanding. The biggest enemy of the soul of the man is the physicality of the man. And when the physicality learns that does not need to do much to harm, or in a way the soul of physicality learns about the real existence of the soul, which it leads to its creation, the physical dimension of life will be complete and becomes one. Because when you love your enemy, you become one. It's not the enemy anymore. Very recently, I was sitting with one of the leading people in the school of Taoism, which is the backbone of a lot of yin and yang, the beginning of which even some believe Buddhism came from it or part of it. And a lot of religions come from that path of life. And we were discussing for quite some time. And I could not understand what he was trying to tell me, and he could not understand what I was trying to tell him. And after a long discussion, I understood a simple thing which he was trying to tell me. He said, you don't need to consider your enemies. You just carry on believing in the good of Tao, and that the better will take over and will rule. That what is to be enemies, they'll become friends. And I thought for some times, and I said, this is what the teachings of the Keshe Foundation stands for. But we look at the soul of the man and how it can exist, how it can survive and become one, then the whole humanity becomes one. And in so many ways, we got to learn through what we call the strength of the soul of the man to love the physicality of the man, that love will become everlasting life. Why does life, soul of the physicality, decides to separate itself from the soul of the man, which we call the point of death? So is it his enemy or is it friend? Or is this what we call the youth, fountain of youth, to live a long lasting life? If we can elevate our own soul, that through the elevation of the soul, we elevate the soul of the physicality, then wouldn't life become immortal? And then when you sit and look at the understanding of the work of the foundation, it comes a lot into understanding the soul of the man. Why do we do things to punish our physicality when our physicality punishes itself in a way? Soul of physicality punishes the physicality for it, to whatever reason, to confirm the existence through the existence of the soul of the man. Or if we look at the macro and micro, is this what we do through our soul in becoming the enemy of the soul of the Creator by our conduct? The way the physicality cannot be controlled through the soul of the man. And in so many ways, life changes in dimension of physicality into the life of the soul, which is more or less eternal and immortal. And in so many ways, do we have enemies? Or through the elevation of the soul, we can raise our enemies to become friends? I spent a lot of time in the past weeks and months with very powerful people, and I listened to them in a very careful way, and I realized more and more that the higher position people have, the less trust they have in themselves. They even see their own shadows as their own enemies, and they have to look after it. That doesn't harm them. And in so many ways, do we look at the position of the power of the soul of the man to the power of the soul of physicality of the man? That one sees the other as enemy of itself than a friend or than a part that it can elevate. What happens if we elevate through? We soon, very soon, a lot of us, I see a number of people in Keshe Foundation going that way, are learning how to elevate their own soul, and through it to elevate the soul of their physicality, and with it, they're becoming detached. It's very, very strange. A number of people I see across Foundation gradually going in that direction. And these numbers will increase. And when we become detached from physicality, life becomes so easy. Because you always know if you are doing something for the benefit of totality, the cycle of what I call the soul of totality doesn't see you as an enemy, but somehow it brings you to serve the totality and becomes a friend, and there's no enemies. And in so many ways, we have always created an enemy to justify our own existence. And the sooner we realize we can elevate the soul of our enemies, we find out that there are no enemies. The only enemy of the man is the thoughts of the man in respect to his position. And it becomes very, very harsh to live with. Do we need to forgive our enemies? Or do we need to love our enemies? Or do we need to forgive and forget? And what is the process of loving an enemy? Is there an enemy? Or if we sort the first enemy, which is the physicality of the man, or essence of the life of the man on this planet in respect to the soul of the man, then would we sort this out, that there is no enemies, because as we can elevate the soul of physicality, we can elevate the soul of anyone. And I think the good example of it, as we see, as we are going through it, is the situation which is happening, and we were through it last Thursday in the teachings and trying to elevate the soul of world leaders. I wonder how many of you ever thought past few days that this is on the agenda. I battle with it every day. We try to sort out, elevate the soul of the world leaders, and in so many ways I see an opening. I see a huge opening as they are gradually seeing what they are to see. And interesting enough is how far and when would these enemies stand next to each other and hug each other as friends? We see in the world leaders which are encouraging, creating enemies. Nobody has created more enemies than the world leaders. Because then they have to fight to confirm they can lead, and then through it they can confirm they are good leaders. I received something very beautiful. I don't know if it can be played on the YouTube. This has been public. I don't think there's any privacy on it. I sent it to Rick. Rick can pick it up and check it if it can be played. It is an amazing piece of knowledge. With Rick is on your secure line.
Okay, thank you.
Check it if it can be played. It's an amazing piece of work, explanation. And it seems that we are, we have been in possession of this knowledge, but we kept on choosing enemies. just coming through. Just check. I don't think there's any copyright on it. It's got some Farsi writing on it. It's about the Cyrus, we call it Cyrus, the great king of Persia, and how he changed things, and how he looked at his enemies, and the enemies which they thought are each other's enemies. And how do we do it, and how it needs to be done. The only problem with this presentation is the last two sentences in it, which, if you understand what it means, is a bit shocking. But maybe there is a truth in it. Maybe because we come to understand it in a different way, we need to contemplate that we can understand it, to be part of it. It's coming through, it's very slow loading up. I think one of the things which comes to understand in a very deep way is, do we create enemies for us to exist that we can forgive them or find a solution for it? Or do we see the situation that what is the position of the man who we think is the enemy has put him in that position? That if we were in his position at the time, how would we react? Would we react the same way? And this is a very deep understanding, and needs a lot of openness to put oneself in the position of one's enemy and understand the real way, in reality, why is he our enemy? Or is it us who have made ourselves an enemy to him that is defending himself against us, and we call him enemy? A lot of time, one little thing can change an enemy to a very close friend. And that line, that fine line, is in our hand, not in their hand. And we live with it. We exist through it. And as I said, our biggest enemy, if you call it enemy, which leads to the destruction of our physicality, is the soul of physicality in respect to the soul of the man. Because as you go back into teaching of last week, if the soul of physicality and soul of the man tuned and correct, Rick has been transferred to you. And then the life or the physicality will adapt itself to the energy and what the strength it receives from the soul of the man, and will never die. If you listen to some of the teachings in the past, I always say that at the point of separation, most of the field, the strength of the soul of the physicality gets transferred to the soul to complete the separation. Which means the soul of the physicality has a lot more strength than the soul of the man as it's gathered itself to it, because always the strongest gives to the weakest. So this is it part of the soul of the man who sees the soul of physicality as a stronger and as an enemy, that in return, in absorbing the physicality soul from it, it brings the separation. Is it the soul of the man who decides the separation of the physicality? By taking from it, by creating condition of position of weakness in respect to it. That in the soul of physicality, trying to feed it, it gives so much that ends the physicality. This is one of the mysteries of life on this planet. And it's somehow it has to be understood. And then life becomes eternal. In the shape of soul of the man, which carries the soul of the physicality of the man. But what is enemy is another point, and it depends on how we see it. Rick, have you received the...
Yeah, I've got the video, Mr. Keshe, but it's from the Smithsonian, and someone has taken their copy and put the writing on it and so on in Farsi, and I would be hesitant to show the video because they might take exception to having it broadcast. They're kind of they're not too understanding at the Smithsonian about their copyright stuff. So perhaps do you have a link that we could give to people that would be able to be played through YouTube or something like that? Because it's just a movie that you sent me.
No, I have it. Let me see what I can do with it.
Is it a 3 minutes video or a 15 minutes version?
The 3-minute one is what I'm looking at here.
I've got that. I'm sending the link into the public chat.
Okay.
If you listen to it, it gives you a lot of insight how the world leaders make friends out of the enemies.
So I hope I found the right link to the right video, because there are many. Please check.
It's the one with the
that's the one.
A man talking at the beginning, a man in suit and tie, and with the cylinder in the background.
The Cirrus cylinder, an artifact ahead of its time, it says. This relic from ancient Persia has a profound influence on the founding fathers. Okay, well, the link is there. We can put the link in our other social media sites so that people can have that and have a look at that. Recommended by Mr. Keshe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that link, Shandor.
You're welcome. Whatever is available on the internet, I used to find it easily.
Hi, Rick. I think it is a good point to bring that one commandment which we haven't touched because Mr. Keshe was not available.
The one we didn't want to touch with a 10-foot pole, as they say.
Yeah.
Go back.
That's the time to say good night and goodbye. Good afternoon.
No.
Now you can't fail us. Yes, you never do.
You can keep it short. You can keep it short. No problem.
So yes, the commandment in question that we were talking about is the 13th commandment, thou shalt not rape. And it goes on, what it is was rape of intelligence and understanding the soul of the man, to abuse the physicality of the man. So we're hoping that you can discuss this commandment with us, Mr. Keshe.
Depends what we call rape. Rape is a point of position of being taken unjustly and taken without consent. in taking position in respect to the soul of the man. We associate rape in all the languages you speak or spoken about is in physical, what do you call it, interaction with a woman, or in a sexual way. We never consider rape in different way, which is taking without consent. It's a kind of, in a way, thou shalt not steal. But in a way, stealing is not being in present, but rape is being in present, stealing. And it's another form from stealing. And it comes from the soul of the man in the dimension of physicality. And in so many ways, rape of as a word taking without the consent in presence brings in the condition and position of emotion. That what emotion does it create? It was taken away by Moses deliberately because it was part of his way to take revenge on the tribes he was planning to take over and murder and loot. And he could not tell his soldiers not to rape. In so many ways, it was predestined, pre-planned by him in a physical dimension, because he did what he did. If you read the true story of Moses in historical value by those who wrote about him, and it's in Torah, it's very, very harsh, and he didn't want it to be known. He didn't want to be there because this is a gift of war, as they called it at that time. If you call it why Moses, the reason Moses took it out. Women were trophies, and when he captured a tribe, women were raped, and he could not tell his soldiers or people who were with him that we just take the farms and whatever, and the women are not on the table. In a historical point of view, why Moses took it away was because he could not carry on what he was did, what he was planning to do as a king, as what he wanted to do. And in that way, he looked at it as a physical way to take it away, will not allow him to encourage his people to do what they did. If you go back to historical time, he literally even killed all the male in the tribe which he brought him up. The murder is done by killing tribes after tribes, destroying more tribes than any other tribes. Any other leader by Moses was one of the conditions that he had to let his men do what they could do, take the wealth, the what you call the women and the livestock. This is the only reason he took it away. But the reason was given to him that thou shalt not rape was on the dimension of physicality, of intruding another soul, taking from another soul. Because with it, you touch and you change their physicality. As we give from our soul to another soul to elevate it, if man decides to take a path to take from another soul, they can do as well, which is what we call rape, in the presence of the soul of the man and presence of the soul of physicality of the man. And then in that position, in becoming stronger by stealing, by the laws of understanding what we know now, it becomes the beginning of the demise of the soul itself. When you rape and you take in the presence, which is, let's say, in between the soul and from another soul, which gives you a better position and the strength as you think about it. Now, by the same law, the stronger always gives to the weaker, and it becomes in giving, beginning of the demise of itself. In a way, when you say thou shalt not rape, which means thou shalt not take without the consent in the presence of the emotion, is that you become the end of your own existence. This is something, is the punishment of the end for yourself. In the stealing and understanding, the reason was given these commandments was to elevate the soul, and rape was one of the worst one, and it's considered the worst one because it becomes the beginning of the end of your own existence, because you have to look at the whole cycle. In stealing from another person's soul, without the consent of, in a way to be given, then you elevate your own soul. You absorb, you take what is not yours. And in that position, as you receive more, now you become a giver. And in that process, you can become the beginning of the end of demise, because it will return back on you. But you never work on the fear. The whole structure we have set up is not to have a fear, but to understand, to respect. To understand, to know that in what is the, why do they, many tribes, many people punish rape by physical death. In Africa, if you look, I can send you a tape to watch, it's horrendously horrible. I kept it for one day, we'll show it. In many parts of Africa, a man who rapes, they hang him in a way till he dies. In some tribes in Africa, they hang a weight on the testicles and they tie it to a beam, and till you die. There are many videos of it. And it's the beginning. You create the physical death because you take from somebody, from another soul, which is feeding to his physicality or in a dimension of another. And again, it depends what we call rape. Recently, I was in a discussion with the situation with the Keshe Foundation, and what we call the situation, how we became where we stand with one government. And I explained how we tend to become what became, we suddenly became terrorists and suddenly became, what do you call it, fraudster and the rest, was when we did not give consent for the technology to be taken away. And it was a gift to humanity. And the rest of it, what we've seen, is another kind of rape by those who thinks it's their right to take. in a way, if I would have given with consent to what the King of Belgium asked on the table from me, and he told me to, you leave my country, and or we'll finish you. And 6 months later, we had to leave. It was a rape by king. And as I said to him, and is known, is that what I've given to the humanity, I cannot give you. My consent was the knowledge to be shared with the humanity and to be given to humanity by teaching direct, than by one man who calls himself a king to take a rape position and take it for whatever they want to do with it. Depends what we consent to and what we don't consent to, and we call it a rape, and the things we stand for it. And a lot of physical rapes we see, it creates a huge amount of problems for 1 second, for what you have to see what happened at the end of it. What does it bring? I said to, there is an old, what do you call it? Is a proverb in what we call, we believe in what it is, how it was eliminated from the history book, from the book by Moses. You understand it now clearly. It's the first time it's been explained. And secondly, what is the punishment of rape by the soul, which is not a punishment, is in a way we dictate the end by the conduct of our own. Because when you take, you become much in a stronger position than knowing the laws of now the life. When you're stronger, you become a giver unconditionally, because you have put yourself in that position, and becomes the end and demise in many cases. I said to my children always, do you want to pay 3 times? Go and steal. Because when you steal, once you have put energy in stealing, second time you have to work to balance it, and third time you have to work to pay for what you've taken. So a fool can do one thing and do work for it, then get it, or work 3 times more to just cover what you've taken. And the rape is that position. We don't look at it physicality. I look at the position of rape in the world of the universe. Many people will see, will pay for their rape, not by just the position of physicality, but in the space. They see free fields and they think they can take, but they don't consider it's part of another existence. And in a way, taking you in strengthen what is you're going to give back.
So it sounds like that'll be one of the problems of traveling in space, is we'll see fields that we'll think we can pick up, but we don't know what they're attached to, in a way.
In a way we do. And
it brings to mind magnetic fields and the tendrils and the long galactic distances that these magnetic fields exist in. And if we were to start to interact with one, then it would feel it through its whole system, and we might not know that it goes on for light years away or whatever many, that it's this huge entity, not just the little field that we wanted to pick up to energize our spaceship, let's say.
We don't know. The thing is awareness. As we say in English, we've got to watch we don't put our foot on nobody's tail. But in so many ways, we are afraid of what might be the response of putting a foot on the tail. Or do we always be careful that we don't put foot on anything, not let alone that tail? It's very interesting what time will bring when these kind of things takes place. And how we assess it, how we measure it, and how we justify it. Thank you very much for your time. I hope I managed to bring out the reason why it was one of the first. Actually, "Thou shalt not rape" was one of the first commandments Moses received. Because the soul of the Creator was aware of the soul of Moses, what he was planning in the essence of his creation. Partially what Moses was given all these commandments was to stop him to do what he was doing. At least he put some limits on his own behavior. When we look at the movies and what they make about Moses opening the sea and crossing whatever, is he opened the river of man's soul, not the river on the sea, to start understanding the operation. The whole structure of the belief, faith in the West, or what we call in Abrahism, coming from the sons of Abraham like Muhammad and the rest, is very, very far away from the teaching of Taoism and Buddhism. Buddhism and Taoism lives for you to respect the others first before you intrude, where in Abrahism, everything you do has put a limit with a punishment. In Taoism, in Buddhism, you look in what you do has to be correct for the others, and you always put the others first in that position that for them, you create borders for yourself, not to cross their border. But in Abrahism and the way all the commandments which goes with Moses, which he turned it around, is to give punishment if you cross a line which is not yours. And that punishment creates fear, but it doesn't create a condition of thinking to be correct, where Taoism and Buddhism does. And punishment is in different ways. As if it's our way of thinking in the West, and to a lot of people in the East, it's totally meaningless the way we think about punishment and other things, because it's not, it doesn't mean that they don't have criminals and they don't do wrong things, but in essence they always been brought up, the school of thoughts of the thinking is that way, that others are more important than you, so you respect them, and with it you bring a balance by respecting them and they respecting you. You have a borderline, so you understand each other's position and respect. As they say, it needs two to be friends and one to be brothers. We need two people you need two souls to become friends. But to be brothers, you're made of one. You come from the same source. And this is what we call separation of the soul of the man and the physicality. Is our physicality our friend? Or can we make a soul of physicality as our brother? And then we do not need to take anything from it. No rape, no steal, no need to have an enemy. Because friends always somewhere down the line becomes enemies, where brothers stay as one because they come from the same source. As in a way, as when we call a brother, is from the same soul, and the ending of being one. We got to understand a lot of things. In the knowledge seekers part of teachings in the coming weeks, we start teaching the ethics of a space. Maybe you call it the commandments of the space. It's very, very simple. And very soon man will learn very fast. By trying to elevate your soul to be higher, it becomes, by the law of understanding it, as you are stronger, you have to give. And that giving sometimes becomes the end of demise. So if you see raping, stealing, and whatever gives you a higher position in the strength of the soul, you have to understand it becomes the beginning of the end of your own soul. And I wonder how many people plan it that way. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Keshe, once again for your enlightenment of this situation here.
Thank you, Mr.
We
Keshe.
talk a lot of truth. A lot of people don't like to hear.
Sorry, maybe we can move to the next one. As we have your guidance, it's much easier to walk through it.
Okay. And so that'll be number 19, Commandment 19. Thou shalt not accept no path except the path of his own soul to his creator.
Are you still with us, Mr. Keshe?
Yes, I'm listening. I'm not talking anymore.
it's always good to have a different perspective than what we are putting into it. And I think it was worthwhile to open all of them up.
May I ask, why do we have a double negative? Not accept no path. Wouldn't it be not accept any path?
I think the way they were written was that if you look at the scriptures from that time, they are all written in that kind of shape and form. Isn't that correct, Mr. Keshe? It has more meaning when the way they,
it is a
they
meaning that two. It has a meaning that it means two, as you say, two negative is positive. It means by not doing and not having, you become in the right path.
We call that double negation.
The historical language is that way.
But it's always, pardon, it's also a point of confusion for some people. They don't like that there is a negative in a commandment. It should only be positive. And we try to explain that that is not possible.
Well, one of the issues is not so much that it's the negativeness, but it's the double negative is in English means a positive. So in effect, it's saying thou shall accept, thou shall accept other paths, because it's two negatives in English. And that's why people in proper English, I'm talking about proper modern English, you're not supposed to, that's one of the rules they tell you in grammar school or early school is don't put in a double negative, because it means actually the opposite. But in the ancient languages, perhaps that was acceptable, and that's the way it may have been written originally, is the thing. So I think we have to accept both points of view here and have some leeway for the actual meaning of the commandment is more important than the exact wording in terms of what might be considered correct in terms of English. What were you going to say before I interrupted, Mr. Keshe? Sorry about that.
This is how the old script. What it means is, if you not accept another path, you shall not lose the path to the Creator. It's two sentences in one, and it reflects what it means. It means the path to the Creator is the path of the soul, because the only connection we have with the Creator, what we call the Creator, which is in essence in the beginning of the time, is to the strength of the soul of the Creator, and no other way. So if you choose the path of the Creator, that should be the path of the soul. In the coming time, gradually as we go in a deeper teaching, I will open up a lot of knowledge which needs to be understood by those who get enlightened. When you get enlightened to the dimension of the soul of the Creator, you shall see the light from the soul of the Creator. It's in the writing, it says, we test the fire with gold and we test the man. So we can only see if it's of the same line. Once man understands the strength of his own soul, as is the strength of the soul of the Creator, the man gets enlightened by the soul of the Creator, by the light of, by the essence, not by physicality. And very, very soon, that path is what it says. You cannot accept any other path, because if you understand your own soul, the strength of your own soul, and you understand you carry part of the strength of the soul of Creator, is like, literally, I explained this to a very, what do you call, high in understanding of the work of the universe. It says, thou shalt not accept no path except the path of his own soul to his Creator. When you accept the path to your Creator, what happens? You're in line with, is very much the soul of the Creator is the sun, and the soul of the man is the planet Earth. What happens when you stand and the daylight appears? The light, the two fields of the same strength in respective line of vision become aware of both the planet Earth and the sun at the same time. You see the Creator of you, which is the sun, because when we look at the sun, it's our Creator in a physical dimension. It's this field which has led in the slowing down to creation of the Earth, and in the slowing and interaction with the Earth to creation of amino acid and nuts. When we look at the sun in the physical dimension, we're looking at our Creator. And we never realize that. It's not something which warms us, something which is on the horizon, which we see as a daylight. We look at our physical Creator. Without it, we won't be here. But at the same way, in the same dimension, when we have the soul of the man, when it looks in the right path, in the path of the soul, and he sees that sun, which is son of the light of the Creator, with the sun, the light, the strength of the soul of the man, then it shines, it enlightens. We look at the sun as a dimension of enlightening of the day, that we receive light. But we see the same thing when the soul of the man is pure enough and it stands in front of the soul of the Creator, you will see the light. This is the light which most of the prophets speak about, the fire. When they become detached to reach the soul, that they see, the soul doesn't see the sun. The soul sees the soul of the Creator, and in that dimension, you get enlightened. It's the same as you come into the daylight and you see the sun, the Creator of you, in physical dimension. You see it with the physical eye. You see the soul through this eye of the soul, of the strength of understanding of the soul, the light of the soul of the Creator, the sun. And yet you get enlightened. And that path, this is the path of the soul. That means to understand the true essence of creation, not the physical dimension of the creation. In the teaching this week, we'll speak about physicality of the earth. And in so many ways, it's on the back of the teachings of past few weeks. And these are something we have to understand. And when man understands how he sees the light as is in the horizon, is the same strength as this. When you look at the sun and you see it, the soul of the man has the same position. It's one path, and that's the path to this from the soul of the man. And when you're in the right path and you are of the strength of and you are the strength of the soul of the Creator, in coming to vision of it, you see the interaction of the field of the soul of the man from the interaction of the field of the soul of the Creator, and what happened with the earth and the sun. When they're in line and they rub against each other, you get the daylight. You get enlightened by it. The same thing happens with the soul of the man, and you get enlightened. And every soul has that capability, not only the Prophet of the past. Is in the writing of Baha'u'llah, bless his name, he says that the present time, every man, knowledge and understanding reaches the Prophet of the past. Because now we see, and now with the teachings and understanding of the new ways of the true way of the essence of creation in space, and then you understand, it enlightens in a way, opens up in the understanding of the writing of Baha'u'llah. We become at the strength of the soul that in interaction with the fields of which are from the Creator, the strength of the soul of the Creator, it creates a light. That's why we get enlightened and we receive the knowledge. It's very, very simple. And it cannot be explained so much clearer than this. You see the daylight? When the fields of the earth and the sun are against each other, and in interacting with each other, create a bigger friction, bigger fields, that the surplus or the addition becomes the light for this planet. When you become strong enough within the soul of the man, which is your own soul, that you become detached, then you are in front of the fields of the soul, you interact with the field of the soul of Christ, and you see the light of it. Then you see the confirmation of the existence of the Creator. I hope that explains it in a very clear way.
Mr. Keshe?
Yes, sir.
Regarding this one, can I ask a question, please?
I'm here as a student. You can ask questions, see who can answer it.
Okay. Before we learn from you that the ray, it have both magnetical and gravitational. And in the last week, you said the ray who is the Creator is have only magnetical. Does that apply to us also? That means our soul is magnetical and our physicality is gravitational. And in this way, we cannot create only when we are magnetical.
It's one way of being able to give, that by giving we receive in the process. And if you are strong enough in giving, in the process of giving and interaction, you absorb and part of you becomes gravitational. But of a higher order, because you have stripped the weaker strength. You're taking the peel of the banana, there's more banana showing.
So in that meaning, our creation here, it came from one ray, magnetical, and that's why he is weak in a way.
No, our creation comes from interaction of 4 fields. If we decide what we take and we decide what we give.
And if there is 2 ray of magnetical, that will create a stronger.
One will turn.
Yeah, and then will be of higher strength, magnetical and gravitational, higher plasma, and that will create a stronger creation.
Depends where you started and what you put together. Very much so. What has been the essence of the creation? Where has it started
from? Okay, we missed from you and
I explain something in a very simple way. It depends if you come from a rich family or a poor family, how much money you carry. You understand?
Yeah.
Others have saved for you, or you have to start saving to become.
But we are already saved for 500 generation.
We are saved for billions of years.
Good. Well,
there is a say in Chinese. They say 500 years ago we used to be cousins. When you meet a stranger on the street or you talk with, you say 500 years ago we used to be cousins, which means we all come from the essence of the same.
When we will get this word from you, good morning. We missed that.
I don't know. it seems a lot of people receive a lot of good mornings in their understanding.
That is in the past, but now we don't.
I think in a very in a very short time, very short time, there'll be a lot of good mornings for a lot of us, because a lot of things which we said will to be about and will happen has taken shape to happen. And then it'll be a true good morning, because a lot of people would understand. Very recently, some government, what do you call it, people started looking into the influence of the Keshe Foundation in the governments in the country. And a very strange pattern is emerging. We're trying to keep these things away from public because of certain reasons. Apparently, when they've done some recent research in a number of countries on the scientific part of the universities, anything to do with scientific, being calling biological, physics, chemistry, and that side, a very high percentage of educated people at a high level are fully aware of the Keshe Foundation teaching, and that has puzzled a number of governments. Apparently, our knowledge, and a lot of them follow and respect the work of the foundation, is how we teach, how we share, and how we allow people to open the knowledge. In a very recent communication, matter, very recent, government officials start asking scientific groups or universities, how do they know and have they heard? And they are surprised how well the scientists, scientific, at especially at the high level, are aware of our work and our teachings, and they support it. And in so many ways, they see it to fit. And as you say, good morning, they understand it. We will release some data very soon. In some countries, the scientific level who know about the work of the foundation runs into very high digits. And on a lead scientist, especially in energy and space, in agriculture and medicine, what they tell me, the government officials, reaches up to 90%. It means the elite scientists of the world are aware, and because of his balance, that they have to decide what to do with it. And that's what a good morning is. It means how long will it take this to wash down into general public? Do we need it to go that way? And it'll be very, very interesting what the pattern is coming up and what we start seeing. And the influence is coming in a way. Scientists see a lot of knowledge which it gets filled up the gaps, what they say. I was surprised listening to officials and hearing these kind of comments. That they even talk about in cities that they all know about the work of this foundation. And that's the purpose. It's purity of sharing knowledge. A lot of us, even this teaching today, conversations you have, is the freedom we have given to talk. Freedom to be able to elevate our whole soul. And one of the first questions to ask you is, do you believe in God? And I always say, I'm a scientist. I look at the facts. I think it's time for me to quiet down. I'll leave it the rest to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keshe. Does anyone have something they'd like to say at this point?
I could add, simplifying this commandment, I would say, accept thy only path to be the path to the Creator, or something like that.
Okay, well, I'm not going to rewrite the commandments, so you'll have to start your own commandments, I guess. You can start a new list.
Yeah.
In fact, you've already got the gospel according to John could work really well for you there, John. Maybe you could capitalize on that.
I'll have a look to look it up, yes, again. I've got it in Spanish.
I have a different meaning to that in my understanding. I think there is more than one creator in the universes and all of that. So you need to stick with your creator.
Yeah, that's why it says the soul to his creator.
Yes.
So there's more than one source, is what you're saying.
Yes.
more than one source to the universe, or more than one source to solar system, galaxy?
I think it is more bigger than that. For now, we know only the universes, so maybe later we will know more.
I think we're having a hard enough time with our own solar system here. Well,
yeah.
Okay, let's look at the solar system, for example. Is there more than one source of the soul of the solar system, let's say?
I would add, was it the difference between two creators, the small differences between two creators that started the ball rolling?
Can I just ask, you know, where we're talking about different creators, you know, that these creators, are they not a manifestation of field interaction? And those fields have come from, you know, like a single source. I'm just finding it.
That's the dilemma right there. I think you've nailed it. Is like, look at our solar system and what Mr. Keshe was saying about the sun, the soul, the solar means center, like the solar plexus is our sun or center of our body. The sun is the center of the solar system, and it's the essence or the free plasma at the center of it all. And would not those rays be the source? That's where the source comes from for us. There's other sources, the source of the center of the galaxy, there's that. There's the center of the source of the universe and center of the sources of other galaxies and so on. But we're under the influence primarily, it seems, of the Earth-Sun relationship more than the others, perhaps. So is that not the is there only one source, and the source in the sun will be the same as the source in the galaxy center and the source in the universe center? It's all the same source. It's a matter of gradient, but it's the same quality, let's say. It's the same thing. There is no other. There's only the source. And if you start to say other creators and other things and so on, that all becomes part of the creation, not the source of the creation. Would that
That's
not
exactly how I feel. You know, it possibly, you know, it's debatable when we're talking about central source of this universe, the universal sun, the sun in the center of our universe, when, you know, maybe put up against the central sun of another universe, you know, like another universe within our unicos. You know, we have two central creators, but, you know, those fields, are they from a different source, or have they come from the same origin? You know, yes, it is a different universe, but it's still. I mean, I can't really talk about that because I've not traveled to another universe yet.
Well, one way to look at it is, I think, is the one way I try to look at it, at least, is the difference between fields and rays. And to me, a ray is something that comes from a central point source. A ray goes out from a point source. Like if you have a light bulb, the rays from the light bulb come from that point source. Or if you have the sun, the rays come from the center of the sun relative to us. They don't come from the left or the right. They come directly from the sun, unless they're diverted in some way or transformed, transmuted along the way. So we have these intense rays that come from the source that get transformed and form fields and so on with the interaction of the earth. And then we have the fields of the earth and the fields of the sun and so on. But the rays are the primary source. That's the source. If you look at our little video of the plasma transformation, where you see the two rays traveling beside each other, and then they're attracted and interact with each other, and then they form the plasma, which we look at as the sun and so on, and it forms its own entity, and then it gives off rays and has fields and so on as well. But the rays are always primary, and from the rays form the plasma, form the fields, form the matter level stuff from the interaction and friction of those fields. But the rays themselves are not so, they're not manifest until they actually start having a friction relationship, some sort of interaction with each other in order to form a plasma, so that it can have fields and interact.
The ray, from what we learn and what we know now, the ray will not become field only when it give. When it give, if is it only magnetic, and that we know now, when it's give to itself, then become magnetic and gravitational, because it's slow down. When it slow down, it will become a field.
Right, when it bends and turns and twists with itself and whatnot, which it wouldn't tend to do probably unless there was another ray nearby or some other field that it would interact with to cause it to do something.
One to have to give. So anyone giver will make this one.
Well, if we talk about a ray and one source, we're going back to the Big Bang theory.
There is no Big Bang.
As Mr. Keshe said, it was a big whoosh, not a big bang. But well, it gets back to that in a way, yes, and that those primary rays are still out there in space, and we call them cosmic rays and so on. They're very intense, and they're all pervasive all over the place, and it's part of the energy of the universe. We're more or less protected from it in this little bubble we call Earth.
If Gatwa here, he can explain to you, because we have it just last week from the book of Mr. Keshe.
Guys, why don't we go back to the commandment and look into it in a different way? I think that the way the commandment is being written is that he who creates, he who is our creator, is our soul of totality. So my interpretation of this commandment is that it's the relationship between the soul of the physicality and the soul of totality, and that is the creator. Now, when Moses goes and meets with God, what he was doing was meeting with his higher self, with his soul of totality, who gives him the commandments. That's my take on it, and it makes it much more clear when he says the path to his own soul, to his creator. It's not talking about the totality of creation, 0.0, beginning, alpha, the way you're defining it through the concept of the ray, but to the creator of this physicality, of this incarnation, which is our soul of totality. That's my take.
And do you think he came in touch with the creator through the physicality?
I think that the interpretation is that he goes to the mountain, remember? And he goes to the mountain, and he goes up the mountain, and and he speaks to God, and then he comes back with the tablets. That's what at least the Bible that I was introduced says. So for me is that he had the opportunity to meet, like, I'm going to use another terminology that may come in use. When he became one, aligned with his source, with his creator, with his totality, in a zero-time communication, meaning out of time space. He was in one-to-one without any interference. He was being analogical. He was being zero-time. That's the perfect word, zero-time communication. He's aligned with his creator. And that's when he gets enlightened, or at least given the commandments, because I don't think he got enlightened when he came back and did what he did. So basically, he was given them by his creator, not by the God of totality, or say the creator, the alpha, the beginning. And that's why basically the Bible is the story of a group. I don't think that the God of the Bible is the God of totality either. That's my take.
As we're back on the commandments, you know, they link in with each other so much, right? Thou shalt not accept no path except the path of his own soul to his creator. That path of his own soul to his creator is him being the river of life and love. Is how I perceive it.
So the path is the river, or the river is the path, you might say. So bring up kayak on your path.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's the way I was thinking of it as well. And if you look at it that way, then the river is actually the source, comes from source. I mean, the river is not the source, but it flows from the source. The river, to me, is the ray. The ray is the prime principal energy, let's say. And it's very, it's a ray, but it's not necessarily a straight path in terms of the analogy there. Maybe it's straight, and when we view it, it seems really windy.
There is someone here, she left us and she went to drink her coffee and just listen. In the background.
Yes, she's been strangely silent here. It must have been especially good coffee.
You're talking about my coffee?
Oh, yes, we were talking about you, yeah. Checking to see if you're still listening, and of course you are.
I never disappeared. I always tell you when I'm gonna disappear, but I'm not disappearing. So does anyone has any more questions, or shall we go to the next one? To the next commandment.
I think we're ready for the next one. I think we've penetrated this one quite well.
3 in 1 day, Rick. Amazing.
Yeah,
actually,
we're... Pardon me?
4.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. XX number 20.
And then you tell me that I'm quiet? 4 commandments in 1 session? My God.
Caroline, do you think we would have reached 4 without Mr. Keshe joining us?
Why do you think I invited him?
Yeah, it always sort of breaks them in.
I made sure he would be part of the party of the souls. So we have a very nice one here. Two shall serve his soul, two shall serve his loved ones, and his own as he expected to be served by the others. This is one which we recognize from don't do to others what you would not like to be done to yourself. Don't you think so, Rick?
Yes, it does seem to have that embedded in it quite well there. And what else can we get from this? Thou shalt serve his soul.
So would thou shalt serve his soul? That would, in my interpretation, would be of action and thought, and you know, the manifestation of you know, to give and not to take. I mean, you can only really serve the soul when maybe the soul of the physicality is feeding the soul of the man with beautiful conduct, with light.
Perhaps, maybe the soul can eat other emotions as well.
Like what, Rick?
Well, let's say let's say we're having an emotional event of some sort, an upset, maybe some anger, let's say. Okay, I'm feeling angry. At the same time I'm feeling angry, I can activate my own presence, my soul, and I can, if I'm aware of my anger and the presence of my soul at the same time, then I can say sort of a little prayer to myself. I wish this, the this meaning the anger, I wish this to be used to activate the presence of my presence into the present for the benefit of all beings everywhere, or something similar to that. And so that energy of the anger can go to feed the soul rather than to feed the physicality and to cause more disruption amongst the other physicalities and reverberate back and forth and all over the entire universe. It can actually be used as a food for the soul if one is aware and has enough understanding to be able to see that as it comes up. It's very difficult because we get involved, we get identified with our emotions. And it's only through detachment that we can view that emotion and actually use it as simply energy. And that energy can go to feed the soul rather than to feed the physicality, is the point there that I was trying to make. And it ties in with this in that we can serve our soul that way with our physicality, no matter whether it's kind and loving thoughts with our that we're putting out and the soul can use that, or if it's other emotions that come up. And the idea is that the soul can use that energy as well and simply transform it from something negative to something that's useful to build one's own presence in that moment, the simple presence without all the attachments, without all the physicality stuff and emotions of the physicality or sensations of the physicality, let's say, but still being able to observe those things that are going on in that moment, because it's all part of the totality at that moment. Anyway, that's one viewpoint of that.
Yeah, thank you.
So any other comments here? Thou shalt serve his soul, thou shalt serve his loved ones and his own.
I mean, to really be able to, you know, it's easy.
Sorry, you're breaking up there. It's hard to understand you.
He become Ball from Togo.
You got to get off Paul's line there and get your own line. Yeah, I think he's dropped out here, actually. Oh, there you are, Dimitri. If you want to talk again there, try it again.
Can you hear me?
No, you got a bandwidth issue happening there, and it's.
Can you hear me?
Oh, it's coming through better now. Go ahead. And now it's not. No, you're gonna have to do something with your bandwidth to be able to speak, Dimitri. I think. Can't hear you at all right now. It's coming through really.
Okay, can you hear me now?
So far, so good. Yeah. Go ahead. No, it's sorry.
Quiet because I was just commenting on what you just how it serves the soul. That being, you know, to understand.
To your understanding, and that's all we heard. Okay, well, we're having some trouble with your broadcast there, Dimitri. So you can maybe jot your thoughts down in the chat for now, or fix your connection there and come back in. We have from Peggy in the chat. She says, self-awareness, be aware of your soul and give to yourself as you are giving to others. If we do not serve or give, we cannot receive. We want to serve in good ways to not harm our soul and thereby not harming others. And Ursula says, as we are experiencing the duality, I understand that we create enemies to justify our existence, since we get the lesson. Okay. I'm reminded by Flint that we're up to the 3-hour mark here. Do we have some more input on this commandment?
It might be a nice one to prepare for next week. So is it time to close? We are 3 hours into the platform.
Yes, I believe so. I'm just looking at a link I was just sent here and trying to see if. Yeah, I don't think we want to get into that right now. Okay. Okay, I think that wraps it up for today and seems complete to me. Is there anybody else that has anything they want to say before we end today's session?
Yes, please. It is for the private teachings listener. If you want to understand this one very good, you go to the 8th of December 2015 session. That will be very beautiful to understand it very well. Thank you.
All right, everybody in the private classes, set your decoder rings to that special message. And so just to let people know that are listening, that the private teachings are from the Keshe Foundation, Spaceship Institute, and you can sign up as a student there to be part of the private teachings and get some of the videos and original teachings from Mr. Keshe, like was hinted at with Jalal here, from the teachings from 2015 that are very powerful and only available on the private teaching system. So you can sign up there, and it's on the website. Easy to find to become a student. Okay. Yes, thank you, Peggy, for putting the link in the chat here for the private teachings, and we'll just pop that into the chat for the live stream as well.
Thank you very much, team and knowledge seekers. And we will finish this one next week. Thank you very much for a beautiful session. Thank you very much.
Confirmed by Topoli. Thank you. Okay, I think that'll wrap it up for today's session. Thank you, everybody, for attending the 55th One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace on Tuesday, October 30th, 2018. It's been a pleasure being your host today, and we'll see you next week at this same time and place. And also be sure to take in the Knowledge Seekers Workshop coming up on Thursday at 9 a.m. Central European Time, which the time has just changed this week. It makes it an hour different than other parts of the world, and you'll have to figure out your time schedule to confirm that it's correct on the Central European Time. Okay, I think that's it. I think Flint will have something to take us out with here. Goodbye, everybody.
Hello. We are the Keshe Foundation. Our mission is to bring peace on earth and join humanity with the universal community. We wish and work to bring man as equal to all beings in the universe. By teaching plasma science and technology equally to everyone, no one is left out and no one is abused due to lack of knowledge. By donating to us, you can help achieve this goal. keshefoundation.org/donate.
Plasma products found at keshefoundation.org/store. Soothing, reusable plasma eye and migraine mask. Eliminate eye fatigue and relieve stress in eye area. European certified medical device. massaging plasma insoles. Bring comfort back to your feet and energize your legs. European CE certified medical device. Antiseptic plasma liquid hand soap. Promotes well-being and relaxation with protective plasma formula. CE certified. One Soul Plasma T-shirt. GAN's formula within the symbols and stripes brings mind, soul, and body into balance. European certified. Pain Relief Pen. Emits a concentrated plasma field at point of pain, efficient up to 3 centimeters below the skin. CE certified. The Magrav's Energizer and Alkalizer raises pH and energizes water through magnetic and gravitational fields. CE certified medical device. Pain Relief Pad, a result of years of research in nanoplasma technology with magnetic and gravitational fields. CE certified medical device. Visit the online store at keshefoundation.org/store or find a distributor near you. Tax and shipping not included.